Hi, boys and girls. Today's learning goal is I can find the volume of complex figures. Now, you might hear the term complex figures and composite figures when you're referring to these types of shapes, but they're used interchangeably. Complex figures and composite figures are two figures that when you put together form one shape. So as you can see in the picture before you here, by where my mouse is, you'll see that there are two different shapes and they form one shape. This particular shape looks like a L. So today we're going to break apart these shapes into two separate shapes and then find the volume of each shape and then combine the two volumes together to figure out the total volume. So we'll go ahead and start. Now, whenever you're coming up with your shapes, I always like to say, let your shape A be the shape that has all the dimensions. And when I say all the dimensions, meaning you have the length, you have the width, and you have the height. So if you notice figure 2, okay, you'll see here that it has the length here, which is 4 centimeters. It has the width here, which is 3 centimeters, and it has the height here, which is 9 centimeters. So all three dimensions are in this shape. Whereas in this second shape, figure 1, you only see the length and the height. In order to figure out the volume of a particular shape, you need to have all three dimensions. You need to have the length, width, and the height. And when you multiply the length, width, and height, that's going to tell you the total amount of space inside of that three-dimensional shape. So we'll go ahead and label figure 2 shape A. And we'll label figure 1 shape B. All right, so again, shape A already has all three dimensions. So we'll go ahead and we'll start calculating and finding the volume of shape A. So again, the formula for volume is equal to length times width times height. So we'll go ahead and plug in our numbers into the formula. So we see here our length is 4 centimeters. Our width is 3 centimeters and our height is 9 centimeters. So we'll go ahead and multiply that out to find the volume. Okay, we know 4 times 3 gives us 12. And then we could do 12 times 9. 12 times 9 gives us 108. So we'll see here that the volume of shape A is 108 cubic centimeters. Now we're going to go ahead and fill it in into the top here. So it says volume of figure 2. We'll go ahead and we'll write in 108 cubic centimeters. If you want to make the font bigger, you can just by going to the top right there and it'll make it a little bit bigger. All right, now let's go ahead and figure out shape B, which is figure 1. Now, if you notice, again, shape B is missing measurements, and I'm going to show you how it's missing measurements. Last week, many of you guys just multiplied the length times the height, and you thought that would give you the volume. You cannot just multiply the length times the height. You have to multiply the length times the width times the height. You have to multiply all three dimensions to get the full volume of the shape. So if you look at this particular shape, we could go ahead and see here that you'll see the length is right here, which I am highlighting in green. And you'll see that the height is right here, which it says 5 centimeters. Now you'll notice that the width here, the width is labeled here as A. That dimension is missing. We do not have that dimension. We need to use shape A width to figure out this missing dimension. So here in shape A, we saw how wide this shape was. We saw this shape was 3 centimeters wide. If this shape is 3 centimeters wide, that has to mean that shape B has to also be 3 centimeters wide. Okay? So in order to figure out the width, I had to look back at shape A, and that helped me figure out the width. So now, as you can see, I have all 3 dimensions. I have now the length, I have the width, and I have the height. Now I can calculate and find the volume. So I've already wrote down my formula. Volume is equal to length times width times height. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my dimensions into the formula. So here I have the length. So we're going to go ahead and plug in the 9 times. The width was 3 and the height was 5. So we could do our calculations. We can see that 9 times 3 equals 27. And then we'll write down 27 times 5. Then we'll do the calculations for 27 times 5. And we will see that 27 times 5 gives us 135. So the shape B's volume is 135 cubic centimeters. So in order for us to figure out the total volume, we will then have to add it together. But just before we'll do that, we'll go ahead and fill in what was the side of measure A. We have the side of measure A was 3 centimeters because this was where measure A was. That was the missing dimension. So we'll go ahead and put in 3 centimeters. And then we'll go ahead and put in the volume of figure 1, which we just came up with, is 135 cubic centimeters. And then now we're going to figure out the total volume of this shape, right? So in order to figure out the total volume again, we'll have to add shape A, and we'll highlight it to show that's what we're going to add. We're going to add the volume of shape A with the volume of shape B together. So let's go ahead and add that together. So shape A, the volume was 130. Shape B was 135 plus shape A, which was 108. Okay, we could add 135 plus 108, and we have a volume of 243 cubic centimeters. And we'll go ahead and write that into the total volume. Now that we finished this first one, I've modeled it for you. The second one, we'll do it together. As we're doing this problem, you'll notice that you'll get questions for you to answer. If you need a loose leaf sheet of paper, you can pause the video right now and get you a loose leaf sheet of paper to solve this problem. So let's go ahead. We first want to find out which figure has all 3 dimensions, and that's the dimension that's going to be shape A. So look closely at the figure. Which figure has all 3 dimensions? Well, figure 2 has all 3 dimensions. If we look at it and we mark it up, we'll see that figure 2, length is 3 centimeters. The width is 8 centimeters. And the height is 3 centimeters. So all dimensions are written here for figure 2. Figure 1 does not have all the dimensions. It only has the length and the height. We're going to have to figure out the width in order to solve and find the volume. So we're going to go ahead and label figure 2 shape A. And we'll label figure 1 shape B. All right, so what I want you to do is calculate the volume for shape A. All right, so now let's check to see if you're correct. So we'll go ahead and write down our formula for volume, and we'll label this for shape A. And we'll go ahead and write down the formula for volume. Volume is equal to length times width times height. And we'll go ahead and write in what the length is. The length is 3 centimeters, the width is 8 centimeters, and the height is 3 centimeters. So we'll go ahead and calculate. Okay, we know 3 times 8 is 24. And then we know 24 times 3 is equal to 72. So we know this particular volume is 72 cubic centimeters. Now I want you to look at shape B that we've labeled. And before we do that, we'll go ahead and plug in the volume for figure 2, which we came up with 72 cubic centimeters. And we'll go ahead, look at shape B now. I want you to think about, what do you think is the width of shape B? Now remember, in order for you to figure out the width of shape B, you have to use figure 2 or shape A to figure out that missing dimension. So what do you think the width is? So in order for you to figure out shape B's width, you would have to know shape A's width. So here I'm going to highlight for you where the width would be for shape B. So the width would be along here where I've written in green. And as you can see, the width is how wide the shape is as I'm marking it. And then if you look at, if this is how wide it is, right? And we see in shape A right here, how wide it is here. If this shape A's width is 8 centimeters, then shape B's width will also have to be 8 centimeters. Now I have all 3 dimensions. I have the length, I have the width, and I have the height. Now I can find the volume for figure 1 or shape B. So now I'm going to go ahead and plug in the numbers into my formula. So I know my length is equal to 6 centimeters. My width is equal to 8 centimeters. And my height is equal to 7 centimeters. And I could go ahead now that I have all 3 dimensions and calculate the volume. So let's go ahead and start our multiplication. So we'll go ahead and multiply 6 times 8. And we know 6 times 8 is equal to 48. Then we'll multiply 48 times 7. And 48 times 7 gives us 336. So we know the volume is equal to 336 cubic centimeters. All right, let's go ahead and plug in our numbers into the top here where it tells us measurement A and volume of figure 1. So we'll go ahead and type that in. So we know that the missing measurement for side A was 8 centimeters. We know the volume for figure A, after we calculated everything and we found the missing measurement, it was 336 cubic centimeters. Now we're going to take all the information that we calculated. So we know the volume of shape A and the volume of shape B. Now we're going to add the 2 volumes together to give us our total volume. So now we're going to do 336 plus 72. And that gives us 408. So we're going to go ahead and write 408 into our equation. We'll write 408. And then under where it says total volume, we'll write 408 cubic centimeters. All right, so now that we've done this one together, the second one is the exit ticket. This one you'll do completely on your own. Remember to label shape A, shape B, write your measurements for volume of figure 1, volume of figure 2, and then once you figure out the total volume, remember to write it on the line. Remember, in order for you to calculate the volume of each of the shape, you need to have all 3 dimensions. You need to have the length, you need to have the width, and you need to have the height. If a shape is missing a dimension, you must look at the shape before it to figure out that missing dimension. So go ahead, complete the exit ticket, and then once you're done with the exit ticket, you may complete your CAMI assignment. Okay? Have a wonderful day.